Just a stone's throw away from downtown Dallas, Irving, Texas is a community well acquainted with the motion picture industry. In the early 1980s, real estate developer Trammell Crow chose Irving as the site for his Dallas Communications Complex. Seizing the opportunity which the motion picture complex presented, the city of Irving approved funding for a film commission and began actively courting the film industry and the dollars it could bring to the local economy. Since that time, several well-known Hollywood films have been produced here. Films like Silkwood, Talk Radio, and Born on the 4th of July. But aside from the high-rolling Hollywood producer who chose Irving as the location, there is another type of filmmaker which frequents the neighborhood. These are the local filmmakers who produce independent features, shorts, and music videos, often on painfully low budgets. This program is about the virtually unknown men and women working in and around Irving, Texas, who have chosen the motion picture as their method of expression. In this and other episodes, filmmakers discuss the rewards and difficulties of working with few resources in a high-cost medium. What's it like to be a struggling filmmaker in Irving, Texas? Well, you'll find out on Guerilla Cinema.
People who are doing the kind of film I'm into are doing it because they really, really want it bad. They're ready to do it no matter what the climate, no matter what the environment. They love it enough, and they're going to make it happen because they're exceptionally demented, obsessed people.
Film is a kind of an infection. I think it's a real infection, and there's no cure for it.
The compromise, time vis-a-vis money. You don't have time for the close-ups.
When did you decipher?
At exactly 0400.
Let's have it.
It's just 3 words.
I didn't ask for a word count. Give me the message.
You won't believe it. We've checked and double-checked. It keeps coming up the same thing. Colonel, the message is, Mars needs women.
Director of some 40 films, Larry Buchanan has been called the father of the Texas feature film industry. His best-known titles are a string of horror films shot in Dallas during the 1960s for American International Television.
Therein shall be burned up.
I was an orphan. My dad was a famous peace officer. And as a matter of fact, he was after Bonnie and Clyde, like a lot of others, and he was at the site in Gibbons, Louisiana, when they were shot. But I lost both my mother and father early. We were put into an orphanage in near Dallas called Buckner Orphans Home. You may have heard of Buckner. And I was unofficially adopted by the Variety Club of the U.S. Variety Club is made up of members, or show business members, owners of theaters and producers and directors. And I was unofficially adopted, so that any time I went into Dallas, I had a free pass to any movie house in the city. I was able to pick up clips from the junk behind them Have you seen a picture called Paradiso? Cinema Paradiso? Be sure to see it, because it's my life story, although it's in Italy. I would pick up these clips and put them together, 35 millimeter, all kinds of montages, and show at the orphanage on Saturday night. I'd be up in the booth show. We had a little theater. I was 11, making these strange montages.
Although Buchanan's movies have hardly made his name a household word, almost everybody has seen at least one of his 40 films. Low-budget fare like Curse of the Swamp Creature, Mars Needs Women, and Zontar, Thing from Venus. Once seen, cannot easily be forgotten. These cut-rate epics have secured forever a place for Larry Buchanan in the B-Movie Director Hall of Fame.
I'm glad you questioned my work, Tom. If I hadn't questioned my teacher's work, I wouldn't be here today.
Yes.
Man has to find the answers, right?
Of course. But it gets to be... Well, sir, in med school we used animals, but...
The best study of man is man himself. It's as simple as that. Now, this isn't an ivory tower. Get back to your laboratory. I want to see your work tonight.
I've had about enough.
I'm the one who says when someone has had enough. Tom, I can see now this work is going to be too much for you.
So, come time to graduate, I had a choice. I had a scholarship to Baylor in Waco, provided I studied for the ministry, or I had a letter to Gerald Zanuck, who was then head of Fox Studios, the old Fox lot on Pico. I matriculated at Waco, Baylor, bored with it. In 3 days, I hitchhiked to California. I got a job at Fox, and I was trying to get into acting. I was in the prop department. I wanted to be an actor, too, because they were all making the money. In those days, it was very hard to break in as an actor. So I went to New York, and I started doing theater and making Army training films at the Signal Corps Photographic Center, Astoria. And there it was wide open. A person as young as I was could write, he could direct, he could edit, anything you wanted to do, courtesy of the Army. They had a tremendous facility there. And so I was also doing plays in the evening. I did a film called The Cowboy, one real short subject, won a Peabody Award. I also did a thing called The Wetbacks for CBS with Ed Merritt narrated, Fred Friendly produced it. And the work was heard about by the Jameson Film Company in Dallas. They called me in New York and said, "We understand you're a Texan." I said, "Yes." "You ever intend to come back home?" "Yes." At that reason I was saying it comes from hunger. We had just had our first son, and I didn't want to bring him up into the mean streets of New York. So I said, we didn't even talk money. It was Bruce Jameson calling me. Jameson was very good for me. It was hard work, not much pay, but we made a lot of commercials, made a lot of industrial films, and the one condition was that I could continue to work toward independence. I knew I had to make independent films. I'm happiest with even I don't care if they cost $14.60. I'd rather be doing that than anything. So we began on a thing called The Naked Witch, a feature film in color made for $8,000. Now that's my classic. That one was incredible. And then the thing that really got me international, and I say international notoriety, I made a film called Free, White, and 21. It was a story of a famous rape case in Dallas, a real story. We worked from the transcript, and it became a very, very big hit for AIP. They just saw it and said, "We want the picture." Sam Markoff again. And Jim Nicholson, who was his partner, the late Jim Nicholson. And finishing on, they did so well with that, said, "We'd like to talk about some other pictures." So I made one and then two. They kept saying, "All right, three." And then we got back to this idea of continuity. I said, this can't go on. If I'm going to do these little pictures, they were all genre, horror, sci-fi, made for nothing, using stars who, for the most part, had done their best work. And I'm not saying they were bad, I'm just saying that they were cheap. We got some good people out of Hollywood who'd come down for the two principal roles. John Agar did 3 for me. Tommy Kirk did 2. And suddenly they began to get a kind of a culty color to them. There was an ambiance about the films. The urgency and the difficulty of making them somehow bled into what they looked like, and suddenly they had a different look, so that people looked at them and said, well, can they be that bad? Because they always found a certain stream of intelligence running through them. There was, because I do like to do that, I do like to throw people off a little bit. And once in a while, if someone will say something with a certain amount of intelligence, and they weren't used to that in this genre. In this genre, the girls are usually bad actors, the guys are bad actors. The camera work looks like it's blow up from 8mm. It looks rotten. But they get better and better. You know the story, if you play softball only one day on Saturday afternoon, you're not very good at it. But if you play softball every day, you get to be pretty good. So we were playing a lot of softball. We were working every day on films and weekends. We didn't recognize weekends.
Get Washington again, Alice.
Yes, sir. Scramble 2 on the hotline.
We've just lost all contact, radar and sensor.
What was it?
I don't know. It happened so fast.
I didn't even see it.
Hey, wait for me. Stan, what have we done? It's a body.
Come on, give me a hand. Let's take him to the hospital.
What is it?
I don't know.
Is it still alive?
Whatever it is, I killed it.
Oh. I think I'm going to be sick.
People do not believe these stories, but they're true. Because just check with the crews. Is it we did not have time to plan weeks for a picture the way it's done now. Even on the cheapest picture, you have 3 or 4 weeks of pre-production. We didn't have that time. We didn't have that kind of money to talk to these people. So I'll give you one example. It's true that in Mars Needs Women, we actually went out on the first shot. I did. I threw a frisbee in the air and we shot it and overcranked it and shot it as our deal. Later I did get a model and used that and showed the people coming out of this little hook, and it's an insert we did. But the actual spaceship was a frisbee. When we would come across a special effect, we'd talk about it, and I'd say, well, Jack, do you have any powder? Oh, yes, I've got some powder here. And it was so erratic. When I look back at now, the dangers that we did with working with this stuff, and Jack, God bless him, he knew enough about it to be safe. But I didn't. And so I remember now that I look back and I say, my God, today we would have a special effects man with a permit and all this business. And of course he has one now. But Eye Creatures, there was a case in Eye Creatures when we had lightning coming in on John Ashley at an old house, and we did not have enough of an exposure between the lightning flashes. Okay, so we undercranked our camera. Our 16mm went to a wild motor and undercranked and made him walk slower to get the exposure. Now, no one's ever heard of that, but that's the only way we could get it. We did not have, we wanted it to have that eerie look. And we've done many things like that just on the short notice. Mainly it was seat of the pants stuff. Like I mentioned earlier about the explosion at the big ice house at White Rock Lake. We didn't know how much powder to use. I mean, we just guessed at it, and of course it was much, much too much. But by the time we got to Pretty Boy Floyd, Jack had it all licked, and we did some great effects in Pretty Boy Floyd. The picture, if it were done in L.A. today, would be a very, very expensive film. But everybody threw in there and worked so hard. We always, because we were fresh and new, and because we were beginning something really new in Texas, Remember, they had only Jameson when I started. Now you have 20 different, 30 companies. We would go to the fire department, for example, and they would, just to get their name on the screen, would have a fire engine standing by on if we were going to blow up a filling station or an old farmer's cabin or something. They'd say, well, gee, you'll put us on the map. We'll be glad to be there. Well, you can't be that informal anymore. You can't do it. Insurance, well, we kind of look the other way. Horror films, that genre is, of course, primary in a beginner's film, whether it's Toby or me or anyone else. The reasons are very simple. It is a film that is well made at all, cannot help but be released. Now that's number one, be released. Number two, if it has something unique about it, it's not only going to be released, it's going to make some money. And that brings you to a second film, that's very good. Number two, they do not have to have stars. But let me tell you about horror films. They're very forgiving. Very forgiving. Because if you are under terrible constraints with money and time, terrible constraints, it comes out with a certain kind of unvarnished, untutored originality. Like the guy that did, oh God, these names, there's so many of them now, I forget, Legend of Boggy Creek. I knew him well. I don't know him anymore. I can't think of his name now.
Charles Pierce.
Charles Pierce. Charlie Pierce. He did several interesting things. I admire Charles. He's in the same cut of the same cloth that I think I am. We couldn't work somewhere here. We go over here and work. Okay? Nothing's going to stop us. But Legend of Boggy Creek is a very crude picture. Very crude. It shows its origins and all that. But didn't have stars. But it had a quaintness about it. A scary quaintness about it. Same with Chainsaw, although he got a lot of nice action elements in there. These elements, there is such a fantastic audience for violence, an incredible audience. From Total Recall with Schwarzenegger on the way back to even the work of Méliès in France. The very first films, they would put some kind of horror in there as much as they would allow them then. They didn't have bloodletting because it was not allowed. Had it been allowed, it'd been there because they would have been guaranteed a release of their pictures. So you take something like The Curse of the Swamp Creature. Let's go to Curse of the Swamp Creature. Shot that in Caddo Lake, out on the Louisiana border. That was one of my favorite places to work. I shot 2 or 3 pictures in those swamps, because I like swamps. It's a southern thing. There was Billy Thurman was the monster, and he used the same ping pong balls that I had used from 3 other monster suits. Now here's the problem with low budget monsters, is they only get, you're going to make an 8 reel picture. You only get to about reel 5 with these suits, and they're torn up. Every night you spend more time patching this suit with gaffer tape and paint it and spraying it with spray to get it ready for the next morning. It's just made so cheaply. And we didn't have the materials they have now. So these plastics and all that we threw together and the paint and everything, would just get through the day, and we'd have to, as I say, we would probably spend more time fixing the monster for the next day than rehearsing anybody with lines. I mean, the monster has to come first. And there's a remarkable thing about audiences, is it's a kind of a cheat on them, but you can have a monster walking for 20 minutes, as long as there's a payoff somewhere. So you can get your screen time. If you're delivering a picture, as I was delivering sausages, and the sausage has to be 80 minutes long, and I ran out of story at 60 minutes, which I did many times, because I would try to get some pace into a scene and find out, well, Jesus, I shouldn't have done that. Because all of a sudden now I've got a 60-minute picture. What am I going to do? So we'd go back and shoot some more monster.
touch him. He's hot.
Food. They wouldn't give me any.
There's more of you up there?
Stronger. Much stronger.
Somebody help me. No! No, please! Please, no! No, help! Help! Help!
Creature of Destruction was kind of an intellectual thing, using, I think, the same monster. I forget. One of them we used 3 times. Our green guild monster.
That's it.
The monster that has created the most very lofty criticism from European critics. I was interviewed at Cannes years ago by an Israeli crew who had seen Zantar, the Thing from Venus. And they came up to the hotel room, just what we're doing now, talking intellectually about Zantar, the Thing from Venus. They read into it all kinds of things, of course, which I didn't have in there, at least not consciously. But we've had a lot of people talk about it as being Satan, and we've had, because of the wings coming up and all this of Zantar. And all we had done was Sam Markoff wanted one real fast. And I said, I don't have a script right now. He said, well, we've got a lot of scripts here that Roger did. Can you rewrite one? I said, well, yeah, can you get it down here? And he airmailed it, expressed to me, and it was, Zantar was based on another movie where the pods hit people in the back, and it's a classic film that Roger made in black and white. Day the World Ending or something like that. I don't forget his name. That's it. Well, we just remade that. And he said, I said, well, how much do I change? And he said, well, change whatever you want.
You're slimy, horrible. Go on. Try to control me. Use your intellect on me. You think you're going to destroy the world. I'll see you in hell first.
Like I made the thing called The Naked Witch I mentioned. And years later I was interviewed in Cannes about some of these little pictures. And a guy came up to me and said, did you know there was a film called Der Nackte Sabberin made in Germany in 1915 or something, a silent film. The same idea, that a witch returns after 100 years to wreak vengeance on the people that drew the stake in her on the farm. One of those primitive things that they made in Germany. I had not seen the picture. And no matter how bad you make the film, and I'm glad I've done this, I set a rule starting with The Naked Witch, and now it's been 35 features or whatever it is. I set a rule that no matter how poor the budget, or how bad the actors, or how little time we had, there was a day That was Buchanan's day. I don't care if the schedule is 15 days. One of those days is mine. Jessup wonders, you're not rushing me. I said, no, this is my day. We're going to do this as if we're really doing it right. If the sound's not right, I'll listen to it and let's do it over. Or if the actor's not right, I might even pay them off and bring another one in on short notice. Call somebody to come on over. I've done that. Because this day, there's going to be a scene that no one's going to find fault with. Now that has been very rewarding to me. Very rewarding. Now if you were to see Hughes and Harlow, we shot a 20s picture with aircraft, dogfights in the air, everything. It's an expensive picture, looking picture. It looks like $3 to $5 million. We shot it for $240,000. But there was one day with Victor and Lindsay with a Mexican shack, supposedly down in Ensenada, where he has trouble with his plane, and they go into an old friend, and I said, this is Buchanan's day. And everybody wondered, well, Jesus, this is a piece of cake. Here it's lunch, and we had 2 or 3 setups. That was my day. That scene looks fantastic. Fantastic. I'm very proud of those scenes. In every one of those, and in all of them, there's been a scene that I felt was flawless, technically and histrionically. And that has been extremely rewarding to me through the years, to go and see those pop up in a film. I say, now look, let's just see this scene, go back to having our peanuts or something. We don't have to watch the rest of the picture.
Have you ever regretted not having an entire film that you could do that with?
I have. I've regretted it. I came closest to it on Hughes and Harlow because I thought it was to be a feature film to go in theaters. It was a tax shelter, and I feel very badly because a lot of the picture is good. But that one day was mine. I'll say this for the record. I don't want to start another picture unless it's like that. I don't know of any filmmaker. A lot of them boast, like Sam, boast about, well, the bottom line is money and making money. And yet they always say that so wistfully that I sometimes feel that if you could talk to them a few minutes, you'd find out, yes, they would like to make a good film. There's something more than just praise of the peers. I think in your own quietest and loneliest moment, when you're not even trying to impress your peers, that you can sit there and smile quietly to yourself. Well, I did it. I made a good film. And it's a great feeling. And the danger, I think, is to wait too long to do it. I know people older than I am. If you talk to them in length of time, they've done some marvelous, marvelous commercial films. But if you talk to them a few minutes, you'll find out that their whole life was directed toward doing this one good film, and they never did it. So I think with a little bit of an edge of bitterness or something, he says, well, I don't want to do that anymore, when really I think it's still there.